Okay.
Okay, so in fact, I just did a renovation of a building in Brooklyn, and they're saying that we don't like the glulam beams, we don't like the steel beams, because they melt, they get like pasta. But those big timbers, they get charred on the outside, they don't burn.
Oh,
So the big
interesting.
trees don't burn, okay? It's all the little stuff that that is a byproduct of our land use policy, okay?
Yeah.
Yep, and then when they divvied up the Colorado River, okay? They divvied up the Colorado River to various communities in Nevada and Arizona and California. You're not supposed to water the desert, that's why they call it a desert. And I know we tend to think we can industrialize everything.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a case in point, it's a little bit of a non sequitur, okay? So they're talking about the bee population declining severely.
Right.
Well, I have a great book called The Bees, and it's a consortium of lectures given by Rudolf Steiner in 1923. So that's 96 years ago. And he predicted the downfall of the bees.
Oh,
And he said, you can't industrialize everything, and so the attempt to industrialize bee producing honey is gonna cause their downfall. And he told why.
yeah.
And so that's what we're seeing. So we're in global warming. I know if I light a candle in a room, it's gonna heat the room up more than if I didn't light that candle.
Right.
It's 9,000 degrees at the center of the earth. If I'm burning all this coal and making hydrocarbons, it's gonna affect things.
Right.
But it doesn't affect everything. But we know that you're watering the desert, the water evaporates, eventually, it could take 10,000 years for that raindrop to rain again.
Right.
So there's gonna be a drought.
Yeah. And that's
So,
really.
and there are gonna be fires, because you have
Exactly.
all that you you ever build a fire?
Yes.
Okay, so you have kindling,
Yep.
and then you build the big logs. You can't light a match on that big log, it ain't gonna work. So basically, we have a bunch of forests with kindling. I mean, I'm oversimplifying. But
Right. But I
so
get it.
these natural, like, if you look at a map of Lake Pontchartrain and the river, the Mississippi, right, in New Orleans,
Yep.
you can say, oh my God, you're holding up that river by matchsticks.
Right.
It's gonna give way,
Right.
and that's what happens during a big storm.
But the opiate situation where
Yeah.
we're not even sure if this, I won't say it's not legal, but the judge in Ohio is basically calling it a negotiation.
Well, that's what it
There's been
is.
some harm,
Arbitration.
there's been harm, and
I
you
see.
it may not be legal in terms of how we think of it, but who can afford, the drug company can afford to have 200 lawsuits to fight
it, totally. That will be helpful. I mean, so she needs the group. But
Right.
what happens with that money when it goes to the municipalities is my question. And will it be inflationary? Will it go to the right places? The politicians already are not working for people. so
Exactly. We
what
have a
happens
ton
to
of
that money? Are we
government
gonna-
waste.
Are we gonna improve education with it?
Exactly.
But that's what they know, that it's better for it to go to the municipalities
Than the lawyers.
than to go to the state AGs. They know.
I
They
totally
Or
know.
even the individuals. I mean, I think that's the real argument at hand, is who should have custody
Yes.
of the ultimate settlement. And should it go, as you can almost call that, another variation of, TARP, what Obama did
Well,
in 2010.
well, the
when
cities- the
he
city-
handed out X amount of percentage.
Well, the cities and
Yeah,
counties, the cities and counties are saying we've already shelled out money for first responders.
Well, I'll tell you what,
We've already shelled
Right.
out.
politicians
No, I
have
get it, but
always wanted to know where the money was going.
Exactly.
So that concerns me.
But if we don't have an efficient government. Like, I don't even think that's debatable. The amount of government waste, the amount, between militarization, the DOD, almost every agency has a significant amount of waste,
That's right.
especially when it comes to pricing. Even in the municipalities, when we look at our own local RFPs, and you're looking at the cost of an RFP versus the cost of actually the
Getting something
material, the labor.
Yeah.
So we see the waste, and it's extremely evident if we had an efficient government, even municipalities, then it would be, I think, a plausible argument to say, we can trust our governments, we can trust the state agencies.
do the right thing with the money.
Exactly. to take custody of the settlement, and it's gonna trickle down into education, into healthcare, into the post office, into,
Parkland,
like I said, right,
whatever.
like, essentially everything that governs and touches our lives,
Right.
again, on a practical basis, but it doesn't, so.
Well, it's gonna be
that's-
placed into a system that created the need for that settlement.
Exactly. And I think that's really what we're seeing, because the other side of that is this, we saw it a few years ago with the inversions in biopharma, getting around essentially antitrust and
And taxes.
Yep,
Taxes.
yep, and
Right.
taxes, of course. Let me buy another company and be able to avoid some of these, regulatory boundaries. But the whole point is that it's becoming, again, a highly concentrated system. So biopharma, I think even from going back to the conversation of labor force and looking at the skills gap. So biopharma, when you look at biomedical engineers, when you look at scientists, when you look at, like, why does it make sense to spend 16 years as a PhD candidate in biology and physics? Because you can go work for a biopharma company and, at the end of the day, make 6, 7, 8 figures. Do your rounds on Wall Street, raise some money, R&D,
Yeah.
the amount of scientists,
Right.
PhDs that I've met that shake their tin can, hey, we're raising money for this drug, for this usage, et cetera. So in other words, we're actually looking at another reduction of a labor force, because it's gonna be highly concentrated. And if those settlements, like, however they kind of trickle out, whether the 2,000, because there are 2,000 cases pending across the country as we speak.
Yes.
And that may increase. But the point is that if the biopharma companies continue, the industry continues to borrow at unprecedented rates, continue to have this mass amount of corporate debt, and continue to be attacked from the states, from the public,
That's where you're going.
and this, along with this higher concentration, we're either gonna see, a telecom
Yeah.
monopoly that we have now, like Comcast, Time Warner. There's only 3 or 4 telecoms.
Right.
I think we're gonna see that type
I
of
can't see what you're
concentration, and with the states possibly picking, choosing, and funding
Those entities.
those entities that's going to now
Suck up
recycle.
everything.
Yep.
I don't think we're gonna have that. I think what's happening in a lot of respects is that you have like, I forgot the company, but Pfizer bought Celgene. Who's
Yep.
buying Celgene? Pfizer's buying Celgene because Pfizer's own growth is slowing. They want to
But
justify.
remember, Celgene bought 2 companies
Right,
before
exactly.
Pfizer.
And Celgene has its own problem.
Right.
That's why Celgene's a takeover target. They were buying Celgene when it was close to 52-week lows. That these stocks have been pumped up so much.
Right.
Now they have to justify. The stock can't drop now. Now,
Right.
if the stock's at $100, it should be. If the stock's at $100, it should be trading at 50. It can't go to 50. We gotta make an acquisition, and we gotta buy back shares. We gotta do something
Gotta grow.
to justify the stock price.
Exactly.
General Electric has a similar problem.
Yep.
Several companies, the level of corporate debt out there is astronomical, and they think it's not high because the company's equity market cap is so high. We're having the equity market cap goes down. And so you have General Electric selling assets at the height of the market. Then you have Danaher buying one of their divisions at the height of the market. And they're trying to make acquisitions and buy back shares and take these risky decisions to justify
The high yield.
why the stock price is so high. Why the government pumped it up, that we got to keep it up here.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think with in the case of, well, as far as the opiates is concerned, I think what's happening is that you see doctors are making fewer prescriptions and people complaining that we don't have enough drugs.
Right.
We can't give pain medication now.
Well, that's an interesting thing, and maybe toward the end we'll speak about that, but So keep saying what you're saying, it's very
Well,
interesting.
so I think what's changing now is that now you have doctors making fewer prescriptions.
Yes,
And the other part is that the scenario we talked about, at least in the Rust Belt, I think, at least in the Rust Belt, in coal country, the situation's still the same.
Yes.
What drove the ton of opiates?
Right.
Because you're gonna blame the opiate companies for people,
so what happens,
particular opiates.
what happens, like when under Obama, we had to prop up the financial industry and we had to prop up the automobile industry, there were 3
Exactly.
million workers.
Exactly.
What if we have to prop up the pharmaceutical companies because that'll blow the whole financial system? We're really talking of a potential for that phenomenon to take place.
Well, well,
Right.
for instance, give you an example, General Electric, not just pharmaceuticals, just all corporations.
Yeah, well.
Just to give you an example, General Electric, this guy, what's his name? Jeffrey Immelt, former CEO of GE. He's moving, they got rid of, downsized, they didn't want GE Capital to become a holding company.
Yes.
So they said we'll downsize GE Capital. But GE Capital was like, to me, was like it was a hedge against the industrial businesses. GE is an industrial company, so it means
Sure,
it
sure.
should be cyclical.
Yes.
People think something's wrong with General Electric. There's nothing wrong with General Electric. These are cyclical businesses.
That's the
The
thing
revenue's supposed to
people
decline.
did.
Right.
The revenue can't go and grow. And the investors like, what's wrong with General Electric? What you mean you gotta do something?
They made
Right.
stuff.
It's like the revenue's supposed to decline in a recession. What are you talking? You can't grow up.
They fired everybody, it became a financial
And
institution.
so they right. So when they started downsizing the financial,
The whole-
finance
yeah,
company,
the assets.
because it was a hedge against the industrial business.
Exactly.
And then they could keep revenue steady, and so what the CEO was doing was buying back shares. They spent $60 billion in a short period of time, share buybacks and dividends. And now the industrial business is slowing, and then they changed CEOs. Like they got on their third CEO in like less than 3 years.
Yeah.
And the new CEO does an interview saying, "Yeah, we can pay back our debt, and we're really important to the government." So he's basically pandering for more aid to talk about how important General Electric is to our national defense. So he's pandering already for another bailout.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody told you to go and make all these to go out and buy another power company
Yes.
Right.
at 12, $13 billion when fossil fuels being cannibalized by like renewable energy.
Yeah.
They bought the higher market at the wrong time. And then nobody told you to spend $60 billion buying back shares.
Yeah.
So they're already pandering to the government for another bailout. And that the people think that's why the Fed keep pumping the stock market, because these companies need to sell, and they have sell divisions
So those assets.
at the height of the market, and then they need to maybe raise equity to repair debt. And so it's almost like, when you start looking at this stuff, it's almost crazy that these companies, if it's real capitalism, these companies should go under.
Yes.
No, that's
Well, that's
and
the
that's
point.
Not
the
Indo,
whole-
not Indo, but
You still trying to- But that's the whole point, that even in the U.S. we don't practice capitalism.
No.
Even
No.
that
No.
is a falsehood.
Right.
At least from the way that most folks kind of opine, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations variation of capitalism, we're a far cry from that. I mean, I think the closest we literally practice is really welfare capitalism. So, because when we look at even going back 60, 70 years, if a government has to step in and cut any check, regardless of how important your services are to the running of the country, if we got to cut a check to save you from the very market that you're serving, we're no longer practicing capitalism at that
But
point.
the scary part is that the more you do, more bailouts you have, and the more the Fed pumps, it becomes a new normal. The more the Fed pumps up stock market, pumps up asset prices, that's the new normal, the way to grow the economy. Even though it's not the right way to grow the economy, it becomes the new normal. The more we allow this to happen, if I keep stepping on your shoe, I step on your shoe. The time you see me, I step on your shoe. It becomes, you don't stop me the first time. It becomes the new normal. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
Nobody's screaming loud enough, you people are crazy, and there's something needs to be done about this, because now somebody that's my son's generation, people younger than him, probably think that capitalism is pumping the stock market.
Well, they do the same
And
thing.
so, but
Yeah.
we got 5 5 more minutes
Okay.
to wrap up.
Okay.
So we all want to give like, go ahead, and we want to give like
I'm
closing
gonna say
statements.
something short, that's a little bit of an abridgment, a little change in course. I think that we hit on it, and it was about the nature of human beings.
Yeah.
And so a lot of corporate places now, or different organizations where they have teams that do things,
Yeah.
the idea is to be present, okay? That's all there is. I don't mean to go too off,
Yeah.
but to be present, whether you meditate or whether you just try to listen to somebody or to experience what's happening right now.
Mm.
And I think that what we're talking about, the pharmaceutical companies, are exactly the antithesis of that. They try to make something look like something else. And so when you have these big companies, what doesn't, and in some points, it doesn't have to be a pharmaceutical company. It's not, nothing to do with human nature.
Mhm.
So we're taking a human nature and we're really operating outside of the realm of what a human can experience as happiness and self-actualization.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the big problem. And nobody's, a lot of people are not accepting responsibility. Now, I'm not saying that it won't be a chronic symptom if a whole community goes down the tubes because they're not using coal, or they're not using the steel industry in Pittsburgh, or
Right.
you know. And I understand that, and there's no mechanism in place to help that. And it may be so even that those things were done on purpose.
Yeah.
The redlining.
Yep.
Right.
So the point is that we need to, I think, be more on a human scale, at least some of the time, to see what actually creates happiness, what it creates human satisfaction. And we keep reaching outside of ourselves, so that if anything outside of ourselves crashes or doesn't work, we become unhappy. And we never try to find within ourselves what makes us happy.
Right.
And I know that is not sort of non-economic,
Well, that's why we're
but
doing
everything
it.
in economics affects that.
But that's why we're doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Because it's gonna give us an outlet.
That's right. So I believe that when we start looking at our nature, we just stop. So I do this exercise like that, and I feel like I notice my feet. If I get worked up, I notice my feet in my shoes. I notice my breath. I notice. Just try that, you see. And the byproduct of that is calmness. You can't say calm down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to calm. But and then you can get in touch with yourself, and then you can say, well, I don't really need that extra drink, or I don't want to take that pill, or. And I think it's due time to look at that, and I think that should be part of our educational system, to deal with the emotional body or the emotional part of the human being.
Right, and I think with more of these, with more of the social unrest, I think people can start
Yes.
listening to what you're saying. So one last point, Sean.
Oh,
It doesn't involve endo.
yeah. One is to that point Chris is making. I think the public is demanding a more holistic approach and caring about what we put in our bodies, caring about the way things are made, caring about what the sacrifice, going back to that conversation of human capital. And there are, I think, not just endo, but the biopharma industry as a whole is really a microscope on a larger contention that's happening. We're seeing it. That's, I think, where that social unrest is coming from. And, the solutions to that, whether interpersonal solution or broader community-based solution, I'll leave to, the experts. But I think simply it is indicating that the way that we're working, government, companies, economies of scale, is no longer sustainable.
Right.
Yes.
People are recognizing that. They're recognizing the changes in weather, earth, whether you believe climate change is false or not, whether you believe certain stats and talking heads and pundits and scholarship or not. There is a growing body of voices globally that is saying what we're currently doing isn't working. And I think biopharma simply is sitting at the peak of that.
Right.
You know, continuing to practice, you know, corporate debt, continuing to bolster stock prices versus an emphasis on human capital,
Right.
and actually manufacturing something that's going towards either the Earth's production or human production. So in other words, there's an even exchange of value there.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, I think we're gonna see some type of both economic and social fallout.
Right.
What the depth of that fallout is, I think is debatable, but I think we are gonna see, ultimately a fallout, altogether. And I think biopharma, along with a few other industries, even throwing tech in there as well, I think folks are waking up. I think folks are becoming much more conscious, driven in their decision-making. That's gonna reflect in buying patterns ultimately, and that's gonna have to reflect even at the state and municipal levels, where companies such as biopharma that heavily rely on subsidies coming from the state. Because at the end of the day, the state isn't this building, the state is people.
Right.
You know, and people are making those decisions. So people are driving that conscious decision to say, hey, you know what? Yep, we had an agreement 5 years ago, but for the betterment of our decision-making and our future, we need to reassess. And I think that's what we're gonna see at some point. Hopefully, we see it before some point of no return.
Right, I think we're only, it's gonna happen, I think it needs to happen, economic or social fallout. I think, going back to the body, I think as adults, we should listen to our bodies.
Yep.
And to give an example, I played high school football, had a knee injury. I wanted to do like the pros do and play with pain. Didn't know the pros were taking painkillers. So, and when your knee hurts, your knee's supposed to hurt.
Yep.
Your knee's telling you something, stop doing what you're doing.
That's
The
right.
economy's telling us something, stop doing what you're doing. The opioid crisis is telling us something, stop doing, and the social unrest, people, you know, the music from the kids, and all
Yeah.
these shootouts telling us something's amiss, and whatever we're doing is we're not working, and we stop doing what we're doing, undo it, and that's been another segment of Trump and the global economy. Thanks a lot. It's been pretty intense. I want to thank Brooklyn Lambert and Tony Mitchell for participating. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.